Hello and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm genuinely glad you've wandered in. Whether you're settling under the covers, nestling into your couch, or simply letting your mind unwind after a full day of being human, you've arrived at a gentle corner of the internet. A place where science speaks in a whisper and curiosity slips into something cozy. Tonight, we're drifting into the quiet landscapes of the mind, exploring what researchers have uncovered about dreams and the sleeping brain. It's a journey filled with the peculiar stories your mind invents while you're switched off with brain waves that look like cosmic artwork and with a few discoveries that might shift the way you think about rest altogether. I do hope this video doesn't become too fascinating and accidentally keep you awake. But hey, if it does, at least your wakefulness is educational, an acceptable trade-off, I'd say. Before we dive in, if you enjoy these slow, sleepy science explorations and you'd like to help this cozy channel grow, I'd be grateful if you tapped like subscribed or even dropped a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is in your stretch of the night. All right, take a long, steady breath. Get comfortable. Let's begin our gentle voyage into the theater of the dreaming mind. So, what exactly is a dream? It sounds simple enough, but defining a dream is kind of like trying to hold on to fog. You can wrap your arms around it, but it slips away before you can get a firm grip. At its simplest, a dream is a stream of images, feelings, thoughts, and sensations your brain generates while you sleep. Think of it as your mind's original built in streaming service, produced, directed, and acted by your own neural circuits. Sometimes dramatic, sometimes bizarre, occasionally unsettling, and more often than not, utterly illogical. Yet in the moment, every bit of it feels real. You might soar through the sky, tumble endlessly, argue with a walrus in formal wear, or find yourself late for an exam you completed a decade ago. And somehow, during the dream, your brain insists that all of it adds up. But why does the brain spin these strange narratives to explore that we need to rewind far back to ancient civilizations? Long before neuroscience or EEG machines existed, humans still dreamed. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were viewed as messages from the gods. The Egyptians even had professional dream interpreters, almost like nighttime oracles. If you dreamt of cat storms or a flying crocodile, someone probably had a papyrus scroll explaining it. Then ancient Greece brought philosophers like Aristotle into the conversation. He was among the first to propose that dreams originate inside the dreamer from the body and the mind rather than from divine intervention. Still, the belief that dreams carried hidden meaning persisted across centuries. Fast forward to the 19th and early 20th centuries, and along comes Sigmund Freud, the man who turned dream interpretation into a cultural phenomenon. Freud argued that dreams were a pathway into the unconscious, revealing suppressed desires, fears, and secrets. Dramatic, influential, and not entirely accurate, but undeniably captivating and responsible for many spirited debates and probably a few awkward discussions. Carl Jung, once Freud's prized student, wandered down a slightly different path. He believed that dreams didn't just spring from personal memories or hidden desires, but from something far older and deeper a shared reservoir of human experience he called the collective unconscious. To Jung, the symbols that appear in dreams weren't random at all. They were archetypes, timeless images woven through myths, cultures, and generations. But this is the point where science gives philosophy a gentle tap on the shoulder and says, "Mind if I run a few tests?" Modern neuroscience prefers a more grounded explanation. Instead of searching your dreams for dramatic family symbolism, no offense, Freud researchers now focus on what the brain is actually doing during sleep. And what they've discovered is that dreaming is strongly tied to particular stages of sleep, especially the one known as REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement, and during this stage, your brain lights up with activity, sometimes nearly matching wakefulness. Your eyes flicker beneath your eyelids, your heart rate picks up slightly, and your muscles slip into a temporary paralysis, an incredibly useful safety feature that keeps you from physically reenacting whatever adventures your brain is screening. Dreams can happen in other phases too, the parts we call non-REM sleep. But these tend to be simpler and more muted, almost like rough sketches, compared to the vivid movie like narratives born during REM. Those wild episodes with talking animals, impossible landscapes, or dramatic plot twists. That's usually the RM department at work. But here's where things get complicated. Scientists still don't fully agree on why we dream at all. Is dreaming just biology doing housekeeping, tidying up neural connections, like a computer defragging itself? Or are dreams still carrying symbolic whispers, speaking in a code we haven't managed to translate, to make it more mysterious? People don't all experience dreaming the same way. Some swear they never dream, but in many cases, they simply don't remember. Dreams are slippery, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. You might wake up vividly remembering a dream in which your pet hamster starred in an intergalactic opera, only for the entire memory to dissolve before you've finished your morning routine. That's because the brain doesn't store dream experiences the way it stores everyday memories. The hippocampus, the region responsible for memory formation, isn't as active during REM sleep. So dream memories often fade faster than a social media story set to self-destruct. Still, not all dreams vanish. Some stay with us, the intense ones, the frightening ones, the emotionally charged ones. Those tend to etch themselves a little deeper, glowing more brightly in the mind's archive long after the others have disappeared. Now, here's a delightful twist. Studies show that what appears in your dreams often echoes what's happening in your waking life. This idea is known as the continuity hypothesis, the notion that your emotions, experiences, and even the things you watch or read can slip quietly into your nighttime narratives. So if you spent your evening devouring episodes of a detective show, argued with your manager, and topped it off with a bowl of fiery noodles, don't be shocked if your dream drops you into a chili-powered crime scene. But dreams aren't only made of leftover moments. They can be astonishingly inventive. Countless creators, artists, musicians, scientists have credited dreams for sparking breakthroughs. Paul McCartney famously woke with the melody of Yesterday already playing in his mind. Mary Shelley's idea for Frankenstein was born from a dreamlike vision. and Dmitri Mendeleev claimed the layout of the periodic table came to him during sleep. So while dreams may seem chaotic, they're also a playground where the brain is free to improvise, rehearse, explore, and imagine without the usual boundaries of logic or physics. It's a bit like watching a film, except you're the scriptwriter, director, costume designer, and the entire cast, and none of you are following a plan. But that's part of what makes dreaming so enchanting. Dreams are messy, mysterious, deeply human. They're proof that the mind keeps bustling even when the body is still. So the next time you drift into sleep, remember that you're heading into your own midnight adventure, unscripted, spontaneous, and possibly co starring a very opinionated penguin. Sleep well. Now, let's shift to the backstage team that makes all these dreams possible, sleep itself. Most of us think of sleep as one long continuous stretch, like hitting pause on consciousness for the night. But beneath that calm surface, sleep is surprisingly intricate. It's an orchestrated cycle, more like a carefully conducted symphony than a simple power off switch. It has stages, patterns, and rhythms. Scientists even call it sleep architecture, which makes it sound like something you'd need planning permits for. So let's take a quiet walk through the blueprint of sleep. No safety gear required. Sleep comes in two major forms: REM sleep and non-REM sleep. And non-REM sleep is divided further into three stages: N1, N2, and N3. They sound like Star Wars droids, but they're actually just different depths of drifting away. These stages repeat in cycles of roughly 90 minutes. Like a looping playlist, your brain shuffles through all night long, only with fewer ads and maybe a bit more drooling. Stage N1, the gentle drop off. This is the lightest phase of sleep, the first soft step away from wakefulness. You're still somewhat aware of the world around you, but your brain is easing into a slower rhythm. You might twitch, jerk, or feel as if you're suddenly falling. Don't worry, your soul isn't trying to escape your body. That's just your nervous system hitting a tiny speed bump on the way down. During N1, your brain waves shift from alert beta and relaxed alpha into slower theta waves. It's that hazy border where you're not fully awake but not fully dreaming. If someone wakes you at this moment, you might swear you weren't sleeping at all, which is both partly true and slightly delusional. Stage N2 light. Sleep. Here you drift deeper. Your body temperature dips, your heartbeat slows, and your eyes become still. Your brain gets more committed to the idea of rest. You're not quite dreaming yet, but you're also not answering any imaginary phone calls. This is where your brain begins to display little bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles and K complexes. Those names might sound like the lineup of an indie rock festival, but they're actually protective tools your brain uses to keep you asleep. A car horn outside. A shift in the room. Your brain simply hushes it with a well timed spindle or a K complex like a quiet librarian, keeping the night peaceful. You'll spend roughly half your night in this N2 zone. It's not the flashiest part of sleep, but it's the dependable backbone that holds the whole system together. Stage N3 deep sleep, also referred to as slow wave sleep or delta sleep. This is the heavyweight champion of rest, the stage where true restoration happens. Think of N3 as the deep, clean cycle of your brain's internal machinery. During this stage, the brain produces slow, sweeping delta waves, large, powerful pulses that move across your cortex like slow ocean swells. This is the time your body focuses on repairing tissues, strengthening muscles and bones, and giving your immune system a boost. Children release growth hormone here, and while adults sadly don't get taller, we still benefit from this nightly cellular tune up. It's notoriously tough to wake someone from N3, and if you manage it, you'll often be greeted by a groggy, confused version of them, like someone abruptly pulled from a soothing hot bath by an unexpected foghorn. Dreams can appear in this stage too, but they're usually not the vivid kind, more like blurry emotional impressions or faint scraps of thought. The full cinematic experience arrives in the next act. REM sleep, the dream workshop. Welcome to REM sleep, short for rapid eye movement, the mysterious frontier where the brain lights up, your muscles switch off, and your eyes flicker beneath closed lids as though watching a silent match of imaginary ping pong. This is where most of your colorful, surreal dreams take shape. Think of RM as the brain's creative sandbox, where logic loosens stories, twist, and random celebrity cameos make perfect sense. But REM isn't merely entertainment. It plays a major role in memory consolidation, emotional processing, and creative insight. Some scientists suggest that REM helps you work through the emotional clutter of the day, tidying up feelings, the way someone sweeps up confetti after an especially chaotic celebration. Here's the odd part: during REM, your brain becomes extremely active, sometimes nearly matching wakefulness, while your body goes still. That stillness, called REM atonia, is a built in safety feature, preventing you from physically acting out your dreams. Your brain might say, imagine you're running from a giant jelly bean, and your body calmly replies, sure thing, I'll just stay perfectly still. Each REM period lasts longer as the night progresses. The first might be just at 10 minutes, but by morning it can stretch nearly an hour. That's why dreams often feel longer, stranger, and more vivid toward dawn. The complete sleep cycle. So, when you put it all together, your night follows a beautifully predictable choreography, drifting into N1, settling into N2, sinking into deep N3 for heavy duty repairs, then rising into REM for a bit of nocturnal storytelling before looping back to begin again. Each rotation takes about 90 minutes, and you'll repeat the cycle 4 to 6 times per night. Early in the night gives you more deep sleep, later, more REM. It's as if your brain handles its maintenance shifts first, then relaxes into its dreams. Why sleep architecture matters. So, why should any of this matter to you? Because when the pattern gets disrupted by stress, caffeine, bright screens, or late night spirals of what am I doing with my life, everything else gets thrown off too. Maybe you miss deep sleep, or your REM periods get chopped short. The result? You wake up groggy, unrefreshed, and feeling slightly betrayed by your own biology. Sleep isn't just one long blur, it's a delicate rhythm where each stage plays a role, and understanding that rhythm helps you protect it. You don't need to become a sleep scientist, but respecting the architecture, keeping a steady schedule, Dimming lights, avoiding late caffeine, gives your brain the conditions it needs to work quietly and efficiently without waking you up just to boast about it. So, tonight, as you drift off, remember that your brain is about to begin a beautifully choreographed performance full of waves, spindles, deep, clean cycles, and dream sequences. You may not recall every act, but your body and mind will be grateful all the same. Why do we dream? It's one of those questions that has teased philosophers, neuroscientists, and late night poets for ages. And even with brain scanners, sleep labs, and decades of research, we still haven't cracked the code entirely. Dreams remain one of the last great mysteries of the human mind, a nightly journey into stories our brains insist on crafting without scripts, logic, or even a basic sense of order. Some dreams feel profound and symbolic, others are just baffling. One moment you're in your childhood classroom, and the next you're sprinting through a supermarket being pursued by a giant duck on roller skates. Why would your brain bother producing that? And yet somehow it does. Sound, color, emotion, an entire production built while you're unconscious. A leading idea is that dreams are tied to memory. Throughout the day, your brain absorbs a ridiculous amount of information: people's faces, random facts, conversations, disappointments, your lunch, and that TikTok sound that's still looping in your head. At night, your brain needs to sort the useful from the irrelevant. According to the memory consolidation theory, dreams are part of this housekeeping system, a mental filing process. Your brain chooses what to store, what to delete, and what to toss into that mysterious void where missing socks and forgotten passwords seem to disappear. Interestingly, people who study intensely or pick up new skills often show increased REM sleep later. They sometimes even dream about what they've been learning. So, yes, studying in your sleep is real, though in dreamland, your brain might mix calculus with cartoon characters. Another major theory suggests that dreams help us process emotion. During REM sleep, the brain behaves in a fascinating way. Emotional regions like the amygdala become active while stress chemicals drop to low levels. That combination lets you revisit emotional memories without the overwhelming punch of fear or anxiety. It's like your mind becomes its own therapist, replaying awkward moments or old heartbreaks only with stranger scenery. That dream, where you were calmly debating your ex while perched on a slow moving elephant, that may have been your brain saying, "See, we're working through it." There's also the threat simulation theory. This view proposes that dreaming evolved as a sort of mental training ground, an ancient survival tool. Your brain runs practice drills by placing you in imaginary dangers, being chased, getting lost, facing an attacker, or showing up unprepared for a test you've never heard of. It's rehearsal, chaotic, exaggerated rehearsal, but rehearsal nonetheless. People who grow up in more dangerous environments often report more frequent and intense dreams, as if their brains remain vigilant even during sleep. So, if your dream suddenly throws you into a collapsing building while you're trying to recite the alphabet backwards, it may just be your instinctual brain running a midnight fire drill. Of course, not all theories lean emotional or evolutionary. One of the more mechanical explanations is the activation synthesis hypothesis. This theory argues that dreams are the brain's attempt to make sense of random electrical signals firing during REM sleep. These signals activate scattered memories, images, and sensations in the cerebral cortex. The storyteller of the brain tries to weave them into something resembling a narrative. It doesn't always do a perfect job, which explains the talking ducks and why your third grade teacher might suddenly appear on board a pirate ship. In this view, dreams aren't purposeful stories. They're the brain improvising with whatever neural confetti happens to be lying around. Another perspective proposes that dreaming supports cognitive development, especially in children. Kids dream much more than adults, and their dreams are famously imaginative. Talking creatures, magic powers, flying adventures, shape shifting worlds. It's essentially a nightly Pixar production. Some researchers believe this dream creativity helps young brains practice problem solving, emotional understanding, and imaginative thinking as they grow. So, when your child announces that they battled a spaghetti dragon to rescue a floating cloud, they're not just being whimsical. That imaginative chaos is actively building new neural pathways. And even for adults, dreaming may still boost creativity and problem solving. Ever gone to bed frustrated by a stubborn problem only to wake with the answer neatly waiting for you? That's not supernatural. That's your brain working a quiet, overnight shift, free from the noise and rigidity of daytime thinking. History is full of examples. Paul McCartney waking with the melody for yesterday, fully formed, or chemist Auguste Kekulé envisioning a snake circling back to bite its own tail, an image that led him to the ring structure of the benzene molecule. Dreams allow the mind to wander into strange rule breaking territory, and that freedom sometimes leads to real insight. And yet, despite all these theories, emotional processing, memory, organization, evolutionary threat, rehearsal, random neural activation, creative insight, no single explanation has claimed the crown. The truth is, dreaming probably serves several purposes at once. It's like a late night variety show inside your skull, a mix of housekeeping rehearsals, puzzle solving, emotional untangling, and occasionally a musical number no one asked for. That's the wonder of dreaming. It's not tidy or predictable, but it is deeply human. Every night, your mind creates stories for an audience of one stories you might forget by sunrise, but that nonetheless shape your mood, your memories, and maybe even your creativity. So the next time you drift into sleep, remember your brain isn't switching off. It's quietly reorganizing, processing, imagining. And if it decides to handle all that while turning your uncle into a chatty cactus, well, that's simply part of the design. Rest well. You've got a whole universe of dreams ahead. Have you ever wondered which part of your brain is behind that dream where you're taking an exam in a swimming pool full of marshmallows? Or why some dreams feel intensely emotional while others seem like jumbled highlight reels of leftover thoughts? The answer isn't found in a single brain region, but in a nighttime collaboration among several areas, each contributing to the production. Let's begin with the prefrontal cortex. During the day, it's the voice of reason, the planner, the rule keeper, the mental adult who says, maybe don't send that all caps email. It oversees judgment logic and impulse control. But once you fall asleep, Especially during REM, this responsible supervisor takes its own break. It quiets down, loosens its grip, and lets other brain regions take the lead on the dream stage. The result, dreams that bend logic, stretch boundaries, and often tumbles straight into the wonderfully absurd. With the prefrontal cortex off duty, the mind can mash together ideas, scenes, and emotions in the most uncensored ways imaginable. It's as if your internal editor clocked out and left the creative department in charge, and they're gleefully running amok. Meanwhile, other regions of the brain power up. The amygdala, for instance, becomes especially active during REM sleep. This almond shaped structure is your emotional amplifier handling feelings like fear, excitement, and anger. So when you find yourself sprinting through an airport, pursued by someone dressed as your childhood pet, you can thank your amygdala for cranking up the drama. It's the part of the brain that makes dreams feel emotionally significant, even when the storyline is absolute nonsense. And because your stress response system quiets down during REM, you can revisit the intense feelings in a safer, low pressure environment. You might feel fierce surprise or exhilaration, but without the full force panic you'd experience if the situation were real. Then there's the hippocampus, your brain's meticulous archivist responsible for forming and organizing memories. It plays a major role in dreaming, especially when dreams borrow from real locations or familiar faces. The hippocampus supplies the raw materials, the cafe you walked past earlier, the song stuck in your head, or the second grade teacher who randomly returns in your dream as a martial arts champion. But here's the twist: the hippocampus isn't fully engaged during REM sleep. That's part of the reason dream memories feel scattered, foggy, or hard to hold on to. You might wake with a sense of the dream's emotion or a single vivid scene, but most details fade instantly. The filing cabinet is open, but the lights are low. Another key participant is the occipital lobe tucked at the back of the brain. This is your visual processing hub, and it lights up dramatically during REM sleep, which isn't surprising given how visual most dreams are. Even people who are blind from birth report rich sensory dreams, often centered on sound, touch, or spatial awareness. For sighted people, dreams play like little films, shifting scenery, odd lighting choices, and cinematic angles included. It's your brain's personal movie studio running with no external input. And then we come to PGO waves, short for ponto geniculo occipital waves. These bursts of neural activity start in the pons, a region of the brainstem, travel through the lateral geniculate nucleus, part of the visual pathway, and finally reach the occipital cortex. Many researchers believe PGO waves help kick off REM sleep and may even help shape dream imagery. Think of them as the opening cue for your internal dream theater, the moment when the lights dim and the curtain slowly rises. One of the most remarkable aspects of dreaming is how the brain becomes both hyperactive and strangely disconnected at the same time. During REM, activity drops sharply in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the area that keeps us grounded in reality and handles logical judgment. With that region mostly offline, it suddenly feels perfectly normal for your dream self to be sipping tea on the moon with a flamingo named Steve. With logic quieted and imagination unleashed, The dream world becomes fluid, surreal, and delightfully unpredictable, sometimes enchanting, sometimes bewildering, always uniquely human. It's also interesting to note that your motor cortex, the region responsible for planning and executing movement, is active during dreams as well. Your dream self can sprint, somersault soar through the air, or flail in dramatic fashion. But your physical body stays still because another part of the brainstem is performing an essential job, temporarily switching off your muscles. This temporary paralysis is called REM atonia, and it's what prevents you from literally acting out your dreams. Think of it as the brain hanging a do not disturb sign on your muscles while your dream self explores worlds that ignore gravity logic and common sense. In rare cases, this system malfunctions, leading to REM sleep behavior disorder, where people may physically reenact their dreams, sometimes with dangerous consequences. It's a reminder of the delicate balancing act happening every night and how carefully coordinated the brain must be to keep the dream world and the real world separate. So when you drift off to sleep, it's not a passive shutdown. Deep in your brain, an entire cast prepares for a nighttime performance: the emotion driven amygdala, the memory organizing hippocampus, the visually rich occipital lobe, the quieted prefrontal cortex, and the movement planning motor areas. Together, they create that strange fleeting phenomenon we call dreaming. And here's the surprising part: you, the dreamer, usually remember almost none of it. You might wake with a fragment, a mood, a single surreal snapshot. But behind that tiny scrap was a full scale neurological production, vibrant with emotion imagery and bizarre architecture assembled silently in the dark. So, next time you find yourself inside a dream, whether you're gliding above a city skyline, sipping tea with someone from history, or wandering through a slightly warped version of the grocery store, pause for a moment of awe. Even when the story is pure nonsense, the brain's ability to create it while unconscious is one of its most astonishing feats. Now imagine this: you're dreaming. You're walking through an endless library constructed entirely from marshmallows. The librarian is a polite raccoon wearing glasses. Everything feels perfectly real. Then a quiet spark of awareness flickers. Wait, this is a dream. And suddenly the dream shifts. You're not just a character anymore. You're conscious. You're lucid. Lucid dreaming is one of the strangest and most captivating quirks of human consciousness. It's that moment when you realize you're dreaming, and sometimes you can even steer what happens next. Maybe you decide to take flight, reconnect with someone from your past, or if we're being honest, spend the whole dream trying to walk through a wall and repeatedly getting distracted by the wallpaper pattern. Still, it's an extraordinary experience. Scientists describe lucid dreaming as a hybrid consciousness state, part waking awareness, part REM sleep. In this state, the dreamer gains metacognition or self awareness, while the rest of the brain remains immersed in the vivid immersive dream imagery crafted during REM. In simpler terms, your brain stays asleep, but a part of your awareness slips back online, just enough to whisper, "Hold on, this is all happening inside my head." But what exactly is going on in the brain When lucidity strikes under normal REM sleep conditions, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic and decision making, is mostly inactive. That's why dreams tend to be chaotic, nonlinear, and completely irrational. However, during a lucid dream, researchers have observed a partial reactivation of certain prefrontal areas, particularly the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is closely linked to self awareness and introspection. Brain scans of lucid dreamers reveal a distinctive pattern, a blend of REM's dreamlike neural activity, plus a layer of the organized coherence you'd expect from someone who's awake and thinking. It's as if the mind cracks one eye open and says, "Ah, I get it. This is a dream." Remarkably, some lucid dreamers can even communicate with researchers from inside a dream. In laboratory settings, trained participants have performed prearranged eye movements, like looking left, right, left, that can be detected by external sensors. It sounds like something from science fiction, but it's real sleepers lying motionless in bed, sending subtle Morse code signals from within a fully immersive dream. It's one of the closest attempts humanity has made at real time dialogue with the dreaming mind. Some people stumble into lucidity by accident. A dream becomes so unusual or vivid that they suddenly think, there's no way this is real, and in that instant, awareness snaps into place. Others deliberately train themselves to lucid dream. A popular method is the mild technique, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. It involves waking after about 5 hours of sleep, focusing on the intention to recognize you're dreaming and repeating a phrase like, "Next time I'm dreaming, I'll know I'm dreaming," as you drift back to sleep. It's like planting a tiny mental flag and hoping it unfurls inside the dream. Another method is wild wake initiated lucid dreaming. This technique is a bit more advanced and involves staying mentally awake while your body falls asleep. When it works, you can step straight from wakefulness into a lucid dream as if you're simply crossing a hallway into another dimension of consciousness. It's not easy, and it can come with odd sensations like sleep paralysis or hypnagogic imagery, but for some, it's a powerful entryway into direct control. Then there's the classic reality check. Throughout the day, you intentionally question your surroundings. Am I dreaming? Over time, the habit bleeds into your dreams, increasing the chance that your dream self will ask the same question and notice the answer. Some people try pushing a finger through their palm or checking a clock twice to see if it changes. Dream physics often glitch in obvious ways. If you can move your hand through a wall or read the same sentence twice with two completely different results, you're dreaming. But what draws people to lucid dreaming? For some, it's simply joyful exploration, a chance to fly, breathe underwater, or wander through impossible landscapes. For others, it's therapeutic. Individuals who experience frequent nightmares, especially those linked to PTSD, have used lucid dreaming techniques to confront and reshape the dream scenario. Imagine turning to the monster that has haunted you for years and saying you're not real. I'm in control. For many, that moment can be deeply healing. Lucid dreaming is also a playground for creativity. Artists, writers, scientists, and musicians have used lucid dreams to spark new ideas. Salvador Dali famously used a form of microdreaming to tap into surreal imagery. Christopher Nolan even mentioned lucid dreaming as partial inspiration for Inception, and once you know that the movie makes a whole lot more sense. Still, despite the intrigue, lucid dreaming doesn't come easily to everyone. Some people learn it with steady practice. Others might never experience full lucidity at all. And that's perfectly normal. Dream recall itself varies wildly from person to person. Even experienced lucid dreamers say their level of control shifts night to night. Sometimes they can mold the dream world like soft clay. Other times, they're just a little more aware while drifting along for the ride. And like most things involving the brain, there are a few caveats. Because lucid dreaming sits right at the intersection of sleep and wakefulness, practicing it too aggressively, especially methods that interrupt your natural sleep cycles, can actually lower sleep quality. Like anything involving the mind, balance matters. Exploring your dreams should support your rest, not sabotage it. Think of lucid dreaming like visiting a beautiful dream garden, a place worth strolling through now and then, but not a place you need to tend obsessively every night. In the end, lucid dreaming is one of those remarkable oddities of the human mind that shows just how adaptable, puzzling, and extraordinary our consciousness can be. Whether you've had one lucid dream, a dozen, or none at all, the fact that the brain can wake up inside its own dream is an incredible act of neural acrobatics. And who knows, next time you're drifting through a sky painted with shifting colors or wandering the halls of a glittering glass castle, a quiet voice might whisper, "This isn't real," and maybe you'll smile and soar. Most of us enjoy a pleasant dream now and then, floating above clouds, exploring impossible landscapes, or stumbling across a bakery that sells nothing but your favorite childhood treat. But dreams aren't always sweet or whimsical. Sometimes the sleeping mind dims, the lights turns up the intensity, and delivers something far more unsettling, a nightmare. Nightmares are the emotional thunderstorms of dreaming. They jolt us awake, leave our hearts pounding, and often linger in our thoughts long after sunrise. But what exactly causes a nightmare? Why would your brain, of all things, create frightening scenarios during the very time you're supposed to be resting? At its core, a nightmare is a vivid, disturbing dream that usually happens during REM sleep, the same stage that produces most of your cinematic story driven dreams. The difference is in tone. While a typical REM dream may be weird or chaotic, a nightmare boosts emotional intensity, fear, panic, sadness, embarrassment, or deep anxiety. You may dream of falling, being pursued, losing someone you care about, or finding yourself suddenly on stage with no clothes on and no explanation for the goldfish in your hand. Occasional nightmares are normal, unpleasant, but normal. But when they become frequent or repetitive, they can affect your emotional health, sleep quality, and even your daytime mood. This is known as nightmare disorder, and it's more common than many people realize, especially among those dealing with stress, anxiety, or trauma. Nightmares are strongly connected to real life emotional experiences. Some researchers think nightmares serve a purpose similar to regular dreams, helping the brain process difficult feelings, but in a heightened, high voltage manner. Think of them like the mind's way of running worst case scenario simulations, to prepare you emotionally for danger or distress. In that sense, nightmares may have a protective role, an uncomfortable but useful psychological fire drill. For people coping with trauma, nightmares can replay the event, sometimes literally, sometimes symbolically. This is especially true for individuals with PTSD who may experience recurring nightmares that trap them in the same emotional loop night after night. That's where treatments like imagery rehearsal therapy come into play. It involves mentally rewriting the nightmare while awake, changing the storyline to something less frightening, and practicing the new version repeatedly. Over time, this can reduce the frequency and intensity of nightmares. It's a way of gently telling the brain we've learned the lesson. You can stop showing the reruns. But not all frightening nighttime events are nightmares. There's another lesser known category: night terrors. Night terrors, also known as sleep terrors, are entirely different creatures. They usually occur during deep non-REM sleep, especially early in the night. And unlike nightmares, which feel like intense dreams, night terrors are more like sudden eruptions of panic coming straight from the brainstem. During a night terror, a person might bolt upright in bed, scream, thrash, sweat, or look wide eyed with fear, but they're not fully awake. Their eyes may be open, but their awareness isn't there. It's like picking up a phone only to find no one on the other end. Most people don't remember anything the next morning. Night terrors are especially common in children, and most eventually outgrow them. Though they can be alarming for parents, no one wants to see their child scream into the darkness at 2 a.m. They're generally harmless and not linked to long-term psychological problems. In adults, night terrors are less common, but can occur due to stress, certain medications, or underlying sleep disorders. They're not truly dreams at all, more like a glitch in the transition between sleep states. With night terrors, the brain gets caught mid-shift, stuck between deep sleep and wakefulness. It's as if your body and mind are tugging on opposite ends of a rope labeled consciousness, and neither side quite wins. Then we have the eerie relative of nightmares and night terrors: sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis occurs when your mind wakes up before your body does. You're fully aware but unable to move. Often, this experience comes with unsettling hallucinations, shadows lurking in the corner, a weight on your chest, or strange whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Throughout history, people blamed these episodes on demons, witches, or supernatural forces. Today, we understand it as a timing error in the REM system. The muscle paralysis meant to keep you safe during dreams simply hangs on a little too long after you regain consciousness. Although the sensation can be terrifying, sleep paralysis is harmless. It usually fades within seconds or minutes, though those seconds can feel endless, a waking nightmare in the most literal sense. So, why is the brain so good at scaring itself? One theory is that negative emotions stick more strongly in memory and evolution benefits from remembering danger. You're far more likely to recall a dream about escaping a wildfire than one about enjoying a pleasant sandwich. That emotional punch helps stamp the dream into memory, increasing the chance that you learn something from it. From a survival standpoint, fear is an unforgettable teacher. But the line between dream and nightmare isn't always clear cut. Some dreams are exhilarating without being frightening. Others feel heavy and unsettling without containing anything outright terrifying. Emotional tone is personal. What feels overwhelming to one person might seem amusing to another. Someone with stage fright might dread dreaming about public speaking, while another person might relish the spotlight even in sleep. In many ways, nightmares act as emotional mirrors, reflecting our deepest fears, stresses, and unresolved conflicts. They reveal what's simmering beneath the surface, the worries we haven't voiced, the stress we haven't processed. And while facing those feelings can be uncomfortable, it can also move us toward healing. It's as if the brain gently insists, I know this is scary, but we need to address it. The silver lining is that most people don't experience nightmares every night. They're occasional visitors, intense, yes, but temporary. And for those who face them frequently, there are many ways to ease their impact. Good sleep habits, stress reduction therapy, approaches, and dream based techniques that can help reclaim the night. So, if you recently had a nightmare, a chase, a fall, a moment of helpless panic, remember that your brain might simply be working something out behind the scenes. And if you woke with your heart racing momentarily, shaken, but safe in your bed, that's your brain's way of reminding you it was only a dream. Maybe the next one will bring something gentler, a nap on a drifting leaf, or a wise old turtle ready to chat. We often think of sleep as a peaceful escape, a nightly recharge, a soft retreat from the world. But dreams don't always cooperate. They don't politely schedule your emotional homework. They just burst in, dressed in symbolism, rearranging your memories, and occasionally throwing in an absurd subplot involving elevators and overly dramatic cats. It turns out that dreams and mental health move together like partners in a nighttime dance, each shaping the other, often in quiet and unexpected ways. Sometimes dreams simply mirror how we feel. Other times, they amplify our emotions. And in certain cases, they may even be the mind's attempt to soothe, repair, or reorganize what's been weighing on us. Let's begin with what many people already sense intuitively when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally stretched thin. Your dreams often turn up the volume. Not volume in the sound sense, unless you dream with surround sound audio, but volume and intensity. Dreams become richer, sharper, and more emotionally charged. You might dream of being chased, stuck lost, or hopelessly unprepared. These themes can act like abstract symbolic reflections of the emotional weather inside you. Researchers have studied this connection for decades. People living with depression, for instance, often report dreams that feel heavy, repetitive, or drained of emotion. Their dream world echoes the numbness, sadness, or monotony they may experience during the day. Those with anxiety disorders frequently dream of being pressured, judged embarrassed, or threatened. Cue the classics giving a speech with no pants, fumbling with a phone that never works, or stumbling through a labyrinth you can't escape. But it's not only the content of dreams that changes. The structure of dreams, how coherent or fragmented they are, can shift dramatically depending on mental health. People under intense stress or emotional load often experience dreams that are broken, chaotic, and disjointed as though the brain is trying to process more than it can hold at once. The emotional weight is there, but the story doesn't quite come together. This pattern is especially pronounced in PTSD. Nightmares are a core symptom, and they're not typical bad dreams. They often replay the trauma itself, sometimes with startling accuracy. Normally, REM sleep helps soften emotional pain, allowing us to revisit difficult memories with reduced emotional charge. But in PTSD, that mechanism doesn't work properly. Instead of healing, the dream repeats the wound, looping it like a stuck track on an old record player. This is why dream focused treatments, like imagery rehearsal therapy, can be profoundly helpful. By rewriting the nightmare while awake, reshaping the storyline to something less terrifying, and rehearsing the new version, people can gradually change the dream itself. It's like handing the brain a new script, one with less fear and more control. But dreams don't just reflect mental health, they can also be influenced by the very tools used to manage it. Take antidepressants, for example. Many medications that affect serotonin or norepinephrine chemicals involved in mood regulation also alter sleep. Some medications reduce REM sleep, which means fewer or less memorable dreams. Others may trigger REM rebound when dosages change, leading to a surge of intense, vivid dreams. This isn't necessarily bad, it simply shows how tightly mood sleep and dreaming are interwoven. The brain is a connected whole. Adjust one part, and ripples spread through the system. There's also growing scientific interest in using dreams as a window into mental well being. While we're not at the point of diagnosing conditions based on dreams alone, researchers are beginning to identify patterns that might serve as emotional indicators, especially when combined with sleep data, stress markers, and cognitive measures. In the future, we may have AI tools capable of spotting early signs of depression or anxiety based on how people describe their dreams, paired with subtle changes in sleep architecture. Though let's be honest, describing a dream about flying broccoli to an algorithm may always feel a little ridiculous. Still, one thing is clear: dreams are profoundly personal. They can reveal emotional truths we haven't dared to say aloud. They can echo our hopes, our fears, and all the complicated feelings that sit between them. And when life feels heavy or overwhelming, dreams sometimes offer symbolic relief, giving form to emotions we haven't found words for yet. There's even evidence that dreams may help with problem solving and emotional growth. In therapy, people often dream about tough decisions or unresolved issues. The dream rarely presents a perfect, tidy solution, but it may gently push the dreamer closer to understanding. It's the mind's quiet way of saying, "You're working through this even if you don't realize it." Of course, not every dream is a psychological masterpiece. Some are simply bizarre or fueled by late night snacks, and that's perfectly fine. Not every dream needs to carry meaning. Sometimes a floating platypus in a bow tie is just a floating platypus in a bow tie. But when a dream stirs something deeper, when it mirrors the stress you've been ignoring or highlights a fear you haven't faced, it's worth taking a moment to pay gentle attention. Not to obsess or force an interpretation, but simply to notice. Because your dreaming mind isn't separate from who you are. It's another version of you speaking in a strange symbolic language. So if you're moving through a difficult chapter in life and your dreams feel darker, stranger, or more intense, be kind to yourself. Your mind is still processing, still untangling the knots even when the room is dark and quiet. And if your dreams turn soft, warm, or unexpectedly hopeful, keep those moments close. Sometimes the subconscious leads us toward healing before the rest of us is fully awake. Dreams aren't meaningless static. They're part of an ongoing conversation, a dialogue between body, brain, and heart. And like many meaningful conversations, some of the most important moments happen late at night when everything else has gone still. You've likely seen it happen. A dog fast asleep on the floor paws twitching as though chasing something. A cat sprawled in a sunbeam, whiskers trembling legs paddling mid-dream. If you've ever wondered whether animals dream, the answer is almost certainly yes. Of course, they can't tell us. No golden retriever has ever pulled up a chair to describe a dream full of flying tennis balls, but science gives us some compelling clues. For starters, nearly all mammals and many birds experience REM sleep, the same stage during which humans do most of their dreaming. REM sleep is marked by irregular brain activity, temporary muscle paralysis, and those signature rapid eye movements beneath closed lids. In animals, it looks familiar: twitching paws, flickering eyes, muted barks, or meows. It's like a silent little film playing inside their heads. But brain scans give us even stronger evidence. In a now famous MIT study, researchers trained rats to run a maze while recording their brain activity. Specific clusters of neurons fired while the rats ran the maze, almost like a melody their brains played as they solved the task. Later, when the rats fell asleep, researchers watched those very same neural sequences replay during REM sleep. It was as though the rats were dreaming the maze, running through it again in their minds, reinforcing what they learned or preparing for the next challenge. The same song was playing, only now the lights were out. Birds show similar signs of dreaming. Zebra finches, famous for their intricate songs, have been studied while sleeping. During REM, their brains repeat the exact neural patterns used in singing, almost like they're rehearsing their melodies while unconscious. Dream karaoke at its finest. But the surprise doesn't stop with mammals and birds. New research hints that reptiles, once thought too neurologically simple for REM, might also experience a dreamlike state. Some lizard species exhibit sleep cycles with activity that looks strikingly similar to both REM and non-REM sleep. It's still early research, but it suggests something exciting. Dreaming may be a far older evolutionary feature than we ever imagined. The deeper we look, the more we see what seems like a continuum of dreaming across the animal kingdom. Species with more complex brains and emotional lives tend to show clearer signs of REM sleep. Dolphins, for instance, sleep with only one half of the brain at a time, a survival trick, which complicates dreaming but doesn't rule it out. Elephants experience REM sleep when lying down. Primates, our close relatives, dream in ways that closely mirror our own. So, what do animals dream about? That's the great mystery. We can map neural activity and observe twitching paws, but we can't ask a cat, "Did you dream about hunting or a squirrel? Were you riding roller coasters in a nut themed amusement park?" But we can make informed guesses. Animals likely dream about what matters most in their everyday lives: navigating territory, social interactions, finding food, playing, running, chasing, exploring. Their dreams may not be symbolic or metaphorical the way human dreams sometimes are. No existential crises or surreal metaphors. Probably no dream sequences about college exams or forgotten pants. Their dream content is likely simple, direct, and grounded in experience. And in this way, dreaming seems to serve similar functions across species: reinforcing memories, regulating emotions, rehearsing behaviors that aid survival. For a mouse, dreaming might strengthen its memory of a maze. For a dog, it could be replaying a walk in the park or a rivalry with the neighbor's poodle. For a horse, maybe it's galloping across a field that exists only in its mind. There's even evidence that animals can have nightmares. Lab rats exposed to stress show altered REM patterns, sometimes fragmented, sometimes more intense, and may avoid areas of a maze they navigated in a previous frightening dream. This suggests that, like us, animals use dreams to process stress or fear, a bittersweet reminder that dreaming is intimately tied to the emotional life of the brain. And what about our pets? The dog curled up at your feet, paws twitching, the cat snoozing in a sunbeam, whiskers flicking. What's unfolding behind those sleepy eyes? Researchers suspect that dogs in particular are vivid dreamers. Smaller breeds, like poodles or dachshunds, tend to dip into REM sleep more frequently, while larger dogs spend longer stretches in it. And although we can't peek into the storylines, it's very likely your dog dreams about you, their most important social connection, because you're woven deeply into their everyday world. Cats naturally are a bit more enigmatic, but they dream too. In fact, some of the earliest discoveries linking REM sleep to dreaming came from studies on cats in the 1960s. When scientists temporarily disabled the brain region responsible for REM muscle paralysis, cats began acting out their dreams, stalking invisible prey, pouncing, grooming, while still deeply asleep. It was one of the first clear demonstrations that animals don't simply sleep, they inhabit entire dream worlds. Animal dreaming raises wonderful philosophical questions, too. If a rat dreams, does it have a sense of self within that dream? Do animals know the difference between reality and imagination? And most intriguingly, what does a dream feel like to a creature that can't express it in language? Maybe dreaming is a kind of universal mental dialect, a shared brain language used across species to rehearse, remember, and reflect. Perhaps it isn't uniquely human at all, but something ancient threaded into the biology of life itself. A quiet nighttime world where memory, instinct, and emotion meet in the dark. So the next time your dog kicks their paws in their sleep, or your cat chirps softly into the quiet, let them be. Let them chase dream birds or bark at dream mail carriers. They are travelers too, wandering through inner landscapes you'll never see, yet ones that are real to them in the only way dreams ever are. And as you drift off yourself It's comforting to know you're not the only creature adventuring behind closed eyes. For most of human history, dreams were locked away private worlds seen by one person alone, fleeting and difficult to share. You might wake with the remnants of a story, a face, a location, a curious feeling, but try to explain it to someone else and the magic slips away. Dreams were once like whispers behind a sealed door, but today science is beginning to pick at that lock. Welcome to the uncanny, almost sci fi edge of neuroscience dream decoding, where technology, imagination, and brain research meet in an attempt to accomplish something once considered impossible: reading the dreaming mind. It starts as many scientific adventures do, with machines and squiggly lines. EEG electroencephalography has long allowed researchers to track electrical activity in the brain during sleep, showing distinct stages from light sleep to deep sleep to REM. But EEG can't tell us what someone is dreaming about. It only shows the rhythm, not the content. For that, we need a more detailed window. Enter fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, which reveals which areas of the brain activate during specific mental processes. One of the most fascinating dream decoding experiments took place in Japan at ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories. Researchers asked volunteers to fall asleep inside an fMRI machine, arguably the least cozy sleep setup imaginable, but eventually participants nodded off. The team focused on the early sleep stages, the moments where brief flashes of dream imagery begin. Here's the elegant trick: before sleeping, volunteers were shown hundreds of images, faces, animals, buildings, objects while awake, and their brain activity was recorded. Each image created a distinctive neural fingerprint in the visual cortex. Then, when the participants slept, researchers watched for those same patterns. When similar neural fingerprints appeared, the scientists compared them to the waking data, and it worked. With about 60% accuracy, the team could guess what category of image the person was dreaming about, whether it involved a face, an object, a car, a book, or a tree. They couldn't decode the plot or emotions, but they could identify the visual ingredients. It was the first real glimpse behind the curtain of a sleeping mind. 60% might not sound like much, but considering that these were guesses based solely on brain activity patterns recorded during sleep, it was astonishing. Like watching someone's dreams from the outside, blurry, silent, but undeniably real. Other studies have gone further. At the University of California, researchers developed a model capable of reconstructing what awake participants were seeing based solely on fMRI data, producing hazy, surreal images that look like impressionist paintings glimpsed through the subconscious. They weren't perfect, but they hinted at what might one day be possible. So, can we actually watch someone's dreams on a screen? Not yet, but we're inching closer. Right now, scientists can detect broad categories of dream content, identify emotional tone by observing which brain regions activate, and even pick up on certain shapes or objects hidden within dream imagery. The technology is still limited, but it's evolving quickly. With rapid progress in AI and neural decoding, the idea of clearer, more accurate dream reading isn't as far fetched as it once seemed. Of course, that leads us straight into a tangle of enormous ethical questions. Dreams are inherently private. They're one of the last untouched expressions of the inner self, a place where no one else can follow. So, if the day comes when we can decode dreams with precision, what becomes of that privacy? Would we need dream passwords? Would laws be written to protect the contents of our subconscious? These questions are no longer science fiction. As neurotechnology accelerates, ethicists and legal scholars are already discussing the concept of neurorights, new protections meant to guard mental privacy, cognitive freedom, and the integrity of the self. Because while the idea of sharing dreams like YouTube videos is amusing, there's something undeniably sacred about the fact that for now our dreams belong to us alone. That said, dream decoding holds enormous promise if used thoughtfully. Imagine people who can't speak or write, individuals trapped by neurological conditions. If one day we could translate their dreams into words or images, we might finally glimpse their inner worlds, offering connection where none was possible before. There's therapeutic potential too. If psychologists could see patterns in dream content over time, recurring symbols, emotional themes, unresolved tensions, it might become a powerful tool for mental health care. A dream journal, but written in brainwaves. And yes, there's even some playful science emerging. Researchers are experimenting with targeted dream incubation, gently influencing dream content by playing specific sounds or cues during sleep. Someone learning a language might hear vocabulary at night to reinforce memory. Someone hoping to dream about flying could fall asleep to soft wind sounds. It's not dream control, more like a gentle nudge, a whisper at the edge of sleep. Yet, even with these advances, full dream decoding remains far out of reach. Dreams are messy, layered, emotional, and wonderfully bizarre. Even the dreamer often struggles to understand them, so imagine how challenging it is for someone trying to interpret them from the outside. Still, we're slowly learning how the brain constructs these inner worlds, and perhaps one day we will bring more of them into the light. But tonight, as you settle into bed, pause to admire the mystery behind your eyelids. Your mind is about to slip into a world of its own creation, private, unfiltered, and uniquely yours. For now, no machine can follow you there. And maybe that's something to be grateful for. Even in an age obsessed with data and decoding, it's comforting to know that some stories remain secret, quiet whispers in a locked room painted in the dark. We've wandered together through the terrains of dreaming, from twitching laboratory rats and philosophical riddles to REM cycles, emotional repair, and dogs barking at invisible dream mailmen. But before we bring this gentle journey to a close, there's one last question worth asking. Where is being all of this heading? What does the future of dream science look like? The truth is, we're standing at the threshold of something extraordinary. For the first time in history, our tools are finally beginning to catch up with our questions. Technology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence are beginning to blend in fascinating, almost poetic ways. Together, they're offering not only glimpses into the dreaming mind, but also the tantalizing possibility of shaping it, enriching it, or perhaps even sharing fragments of it someday. Let's start with targeted dream incubation. Yes, that really is a scientific term and an area growing at remarkable speed. The idea is straightforward. If you give the brain a gentle cue before or during sleep, you might be able to influence the direction of a dream. Not full control, not steering the ship so much as nudging a canoe along a calm river. Studies have already shown that certain sounds, scents, or words played during specific sleep stages can evoke related dream imagery. People exposed to the smell of roses while sleeping, for instance, tend to report more pleasant dream scenes. Someone hearing the whispered word tree might later describe dreaming of a forest. These subtle cues, timed with precision, can shift the flavor of a dream without waking the sleeper. It's not mind control, it's more like mental gardening, planting a small seed and watching what grows. Now imagine combining this with wearable sleep technology, smart headbands that read your brain waves or earbuds that deliver cues only during REM sleep. One day you might guide your dreams to help rehearse a speech, untangle a problem, or gently work through emotional knots. There are already early apps and devices claiming to do this. The science is young, but it's unmistakably moving from fiction toward fact. And since we're talking sci fi dreams becoming real, let's touch on dream sharing. The idea that two people could share the same dream, or that we could record and replay our dreams like movies, has fascinated humans for centuries. We're not there yet, but as we discussed earlier, researchers are already decoding fragments of dream visuals using fMRI and machine learning. The images are blurry, abstract, like watching someone's dreams through frosted glass, but the door is no longer fully closed. In the future, those fragments could become clearer. Perhaps one day you might replay a dream the morning after. Not a perfect reconstruction, but a shimmering sketch of the tone, the mood, the surreal flavor of the night. A dream diary brought to life. But as we look forward, gentle ethical warning lights begin to flicker. If we can guide dreams, could they also be manipulated? If we can read dreams, could they be misinterpreted or abused? What happens when the boundary between sleep and technology grows thin? This is why conversations around neuro rights have already begun. These proposed rights aim to protect mental privacy, personal autonomy, and the freedom to think without intrusion. If dreams are the last intimate corner of the mind, we must move carefully, respectfully, as though walking through a sacred space in someone else's home. Of course, there are also beautiful possibilities for healing. Imagine a future where people with PTSD receive personalized dream based therapy using gentle sound cues or subtle neural stimulation to help reprocess trauma in safer ways. Where anxious children learn to reshape frightening dreams into stories of bravery and adventure, or where older adults facing memory loss revisit cherished moments supported by cues from photographs, music, or familiar scents. Lucid dreaming, too, might experience a renaissance, not as a means of escape, but as a tool for creativity, emotional insight, and even learning. Some scientists are even examining how lucid dreamers might practice real world skills while asleep, playing an instrument, rehearsing difficult conversations, or refining athletic movements. The brain, after all, doesn't completely distinguish between imagining an action and performing it. If your dream self practices kindness, courage, patience, or confidence, maybe your waking self carries a little of that training into the day. And then we arrive at the newest player in the dream universe, AI. Artificial intelligence is now being trained to interpret brain patterns, suggest dream themes, and even help create interactive worlds inspired by dream logic. Some virtual reality designers are experimenting with environments that shift and respond to emotion experiences that feel less like traditional games and more like lucid dreams you can step into while fully awake. It's surreal, it's exciting, it's only the beginning. But amidst all this technological wonder, there's something softly grounding to remember. Dreaming itself requires no devices, no headsets, no fancy tools. Your brain is already equipped with everything it needs to remember, to imagine, to sort, to wander. All you need is rest and perhaps a little openness to the unknown. Because dreams remind us that the mind isn't just a biological machine. It's a storyteller, an explorer, a quiet projector in the dark, replaying moments, inventing new ones, stitching together fragments into something only you could dream. The future of dream science may bring remarkable innovations, new therapies, new insights, new ways to understand each other, but it will never replace the simple magic of waking with a strange image lingering in your mind and thinking, where on earth did that come from? And maybe that's the essence of dreaming. No matter how far science advances, dreams will always keep a bit of mystery, a hint of poetry, a place where the brain stretches outward and inward, at once drifting into a realm only it knows how to reach. So sleep deeply tonight. Let your thoughts soften. Let your dreams unfold free and unhurried. Know that while science observes from a respectful distance, your inner world continues writing quiet stories night after night in its oldest and most secret language. And here we are, gently returning from the strange, luminous terrain of the dreaming mind. We've wandered through REM cycles, strolled past memory's shelves, listened to the murmuring amygdala, and even peeked toward the future of dream technology. We've learned that dreams aren't just nighttime static. They're narratives your mind creates, sometimes messy, sometimes breathtaking, always intimate. What we understand so far is astonishing, but what remains unknown is perhaps even more extraordinary. For despite all our maps and measurements, dreams still slip through the fingers of explanation. They remain in many ways the mind's poetry, equal parts biology and mystery. So as you drift off tonight, whether your dreams lead you on a grand adventure, revisit a quiet moment from years ago, or dissolve into something wonderfully absurd, let them. You don't have to analyze every detail. Just allow yourself to float. Your brain knows exactly what it's doing. And if this video has made your mind a little too awake out of curiosity, well, I'm sorry, but I hope the trade was worth it. Learning something new before bed isn't such a bad way to end the day. Before we part, if you enjoyed this gentle journey through the sleeping brain, I'd be grateful for a soft tap on the like button, a subscription to the Sleepy Scientist, or a quiet comment below. Tell me where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the evening. I love seeing where this little cloud of calm drifts around the world. Until next time, rest well, dream deeply, And remember, even in darkness, your mind is still weaving stories just for you. Good night.